Hello, and welcome to Airship Pirates World. Today we're going to be talking about combat basics and mechanics. Combat in the Airship Pirates World centers around the destruction of piloted crafts with the Move Craft plugin. A craft is anything that moves, so that would include a fighter, or an airship, or a submersible airship, anything that is pilotable. In the Move Craft plugin, there's essentially two basic mechanisms for sinking a ship. The first is really simple, and that is if a certain percentage of the original blocks making up a craft have been destroyed, then that craft will sink. So for example, this fighter, if 2% of the original blocks that make up that fighter are destroyed, it will sink. With airships, that number is 40%. So fighters are very fragile. So if I simply pilot this by right-clicking on the command side, it doesn't matter what blocks are destroyed. This redstone is certainly not necessary to make this craft fly, yet if I destroy it, the craft should sink. There it goes. And down it goes. So yes, fighters are very fragile. Rather loud. Okay, so yes, fighters, you only have to hit them once or twice. Just a few blocks being destroyed on a fighter will cause it to sink. Now, warships, on the other hand, are significantly more sturdy, requiring 40%, almost half, of the original vessel to have been blown away before it sinks from that mechanic. Now, the other mechanic is the fly blocks. In order for any craft to fly, half of it, 50%, must be wool. And then 1% for a warship, or more for fighters, must be redstone. That is the form of engines, and they're back here. If you destroy enough wool or enough redstone, then the craft will sink. With submersible warships like this one, iron blocks are also included. So all of this iron is actually necessary, and if you destroy enough of it, the craft will sink. Now, the important thing to realize is it's based on the percentage of the original craft, the percentage of the existing craft, of what remains. So, for example, if I blow off the front part of this Barracuda here, you'll note there's not a whole lot of wool in there. So if I destroy the front third of the craft, it actually flies better when I'm done with that than it did before, because most of the wool is back here. On the other hand, if I put a very small hole in the armor, and then I set the wool on fire so that it burns through, it'll destroy a lot of the wool, but leave the rest of the craft intact, and that added weight of the rest of the craft still being intact will drag the ship down and cause it to sink. So, in order to use that mechanic, the flyblocks mechanic, precision is required. And that's where strategy comes in. We'll talk more about that later, but for now let's get on to weapon systems. In the Airship Pirates World, there are 4 basic weapon systems on 99% of the aircraft. There is TNT Cannons, that's this right here. There are Torpedoes, which on the Barracuda shoot out the front right here. Then there are bombs, which we'll get to, and then there are fire guns, which shoot out of these dispensers along the side and then in front. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the TNT Cannon. So most most current TNT cannons will be adjustable arc, and so what you need to look for is a button next to a repeater, because the button triggers the weapon and the repeater controls the arc or elevation of the weapon. So I'm going to set this on the minimum elevation, so I'm going to go with very few clicks on the repeater. And that should shoot more or less straight forward. And what is straight forward of me? Oh, look, there's a little unarmored merchantman straight ahead. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this trigger, and you can see what happens. And boom! And it hit the merchantman right here, and nothing happened. Huh, why would that be? Okay, well, let's move in here. Oh, hey, you have entered Royal Navy protected airspace. Airship combat is not permitted. So, you see how that works. This is protected airspace. Explosions do not harm blocks in this airspace, and fires will not burn. So if I want to destroy a target, I have to attack it outside protected airspace. So be aware of that. Now, the other thing, most current cannons, but not all, but most of them, are mounted on turrets. So somewhere, usually near the trigger and elevation controls, you'll find a remote sign that will say turret on it. Now, it might say fore turret or aft turret, turret 1, 2, 3, because you may have more than one turret on your ship. In this case, there's only one. And if you right-click on this sign, oh, yes, you do have to command your craft. So let me do that. I'm just going to turn around here, and I'm going to right-click on the command sign. There we go, successfully piloted craft. Now, if I right-click on this, it is going to turn the turret right. If I left-click, it will turn the turret left. Okay, so I'm going to right-click one more time. You can see, okay, yeah, it has turned right. Now it's facing that way. If I were to right-click again, it would say that is obstructed. Now, you'll notice different crafts have turrets that can turn into different arcs. On this one, it can fire forward, right, or left. It cannot fire aft, because the body of the ship is in the way. So you'll have to get experience with different designs and understand what your craft is capable of. Now, the last thing I want to show you is just how that elevation control works. Now, I can turn the turret with the control down there. I can also hop on the turret and simply left-click right there. Alright, anyway, so if I now set the elevation as high as it goes, so that it has the maximum number of clicks on the repeater, and then I pull the trigger, you can see that now it shoots very high. That's how that elevation control works. Alright, the last thing to talk about with TNT cannons is how to reload them. So you'll note the TNT cannon itself is going to have a whole bunch of dispensers on it. If you right-click on each one, you'll see TNT in it. Alright? And then one of them, this one in this case, will have water. Do not load TNT into the water dispenser. That would be bad. Your cannon would explode, probably sinking you. Oh, and another thing, don't fire your TNT cannon while your ship is moving, or your cannon will explode, probably sinking you. So yeah, you got to be careful with these things. They're great weapons, they have a lot of flexibility, and they have very good range, especially some of them. But yes, you do have to know what you're doing, or you could blow yourself up. So yeah, you just go through on each of these dispensers, and there's one way in the back, at the back of the chamber, and load them up with TNT. Alright, now let's move on to torpedoes. So if it's on a warship, any torpedo will probably have a torpedo tube door. That will be controlled with a button. In this case, it says right on the torpedo control, press a button to open tube. If you do not press the button to open the tube, when you fire the torpedo, it'll explode inside your ship, which is generally considered unhealthy. The other thing is, this design has two torpedoes. There's one here, and if I go to the aft section, there's another right there. Okay? Now, if I fire the aft torpedo, the one back there, before firing the front torpedo, what do you think is going to happen? That's right, the torpedoes will hit each other and destroy the entire ship in a massive explosion. Don't do that. So you open the tube door like this, and you see a little piston comes down, moves that block, now it's open, and then you fire it like this, and away the torpedo goes. Now, once again, that is protected airspace, so it didn't do anything, right? It was a nice, satisfying explosion, but it didn't actually damage the ship. Now, the other thing that you need to realize is, okay, so there's a reason that tube door is there. Because the torpedoes themselves can be shot at with fire guns. If you hit a torpedo with a fire gun, it will explode. If it's piloted, if it's been launched. If it's been armed, then it will explode. But even if it hasn't been armed, they could shoot at the torpedo, set it on fire, and then the torpedo would set fire to the rest of the ship. That's why you have these tube doors. To close the tube door, you're going to use another button, usually right next to the button that opens it. In this case, it's this one. Okay, so button to open the door and button to close the door. Simple. The final thing to talk about with torpedoes is that they can be reloaded. You could walk back here and reload it by hand by placing coal blocks. You could also use the repair sign. So if you have a repair sign on your ship, you can use that it'll replace any missing block. That includes torpedoes. So I can use that to reload my torpedo tubes, especially for those that are a little harder to reach. Alright, now there's fire guns. Fire guns are controlled with a lever. So I have forward fire guns on this ship, which is controlled with this lever. And then I have side fire guns, which are controlled with this lever and this lever. Every ship is different. Their layout is all a little different, and their weapons work a little differently. You're going to have to get experienced with the various ship designs. And the best way to do that is the arena, which I'll show you later. But for now, I'm just going to open up with my fire guns. And okay. And once again, we can see, hey, it set it on fire, but nothing's happening. The ship isn't sinking. Why? Because it's in protected airspace. So you see how that works. On the other hand, there's another ship right over there. That ship is not in protected airspace, and it has no armor. It is a simple, unarmored merchantman. Therefore, I can use my side fire guns, light it up, way to just shoot through that thing. And set it on fire. Merchantmen are very vulnerable to fire guns. It's usually the first weapon you see on the server is going to be fire guns, because they can shoot down merchantmen and you can shoot down fighters with it. You can also try to shoot down torpedoes. But it doesn't always work. Torpedoes, they move pretty quick, and it's a small target, so you may not be able to actually shoot it down. And now it's finally starting to sink. One thing you'll notice about Movecraft sinking behavior, it takes a little bit for Movecraft to realize that a ship should sink. Usually 10 seconds or so. Well, maybe not that long, a few seconds. So that ship, I mean, you could tell I'd really ripped it up, but it wasn't sinking for a little while, and that's because it took it a little while to realize that it should be sinking. Fire guns, yeah, like I say, very useful to shooting down fighters, for torching enemy ships once you've penetrated the armor, or shooting up unarmored targets like that merchantman. Alright, now, the final weapon system I want to show you is bombs. Bombs is the simplest weapon system, but they can be a lot of fun to use, and they're very effective if you can get above the target. Typically that involves a little bit of subterfuge, because usually they don't let you get above them. So this Corvette has one type of bomb system, the most simple, which is nothing but a lever, see that lever, on top of some dispensers. So if you look on your ship and you see that you've got a lever attached directly to dispensers, you know you have the simplest form of bombs. To use these bombs, you simply rapidly click the lever, and that will dispense more and more bombs. Let me just do that. And there it goes. So you can see that Barracuda is now sinking. Because where I dropped those bombs is right where the Barracuda has most of its lift. So it went right through. So that's the most basic bomb system, and in order to reload the bomb, you simply put TNT back in the dispensers. They're very simple. There's no special trick. You just go down here. Usually you'd fly in a fighter to do this, and you go to each dispenser. You make sure it has TNT in it. Alright, now there is the more advanced form of bomb system, an automatic bomb system. Only a few ships have it. The Destroyer Mark III is one of them. So if I go inside here, and I go down to the bomb bay, which is over here. If you see that you have a lever, but not attached to dispensers, typically that means it's an automatic system. So rather than flipping this switch numerous times, I will simply flip it once, and it'll dispense numerous bombs. And there it goes, just blasting through that poor unfortunate. Holy cow, there is nothing. So yeah, very nasty weapon, very effective. If you can get above your target, it's pretty much dead. Of course, for that very reason, most experienced airship commanders will not allow you to get above you. Okay, so now let's talk about the operational basics. So to shoot down a fighter, you saw how that works. You simply have to knock out 1 or 2 blocks and it will start to sink. Fire guns are very effective for that purpose. You can use cannons, especially if the fighter is a long way away, and especially if the cannon is a scattershot cannon, because those fire guns have a limited range, whereas the cannons, some of them, shoot incredibly far. You can use torpedoes, I've seen it done. In general, the torpedo is a poor weapon for destroying a fighter, though, because the fighter is only slightly slower than the torpedo and can usually get out of the way. Let me just clean up my mess here. Alright. Then, with warships, you're going to want, with a small warship, typically it's enough to penetrate the armor somewhere and set it on fire. With a large and sturdily constructed warship, like this destroyer, you may need to do more. You're either going to need to penetrate it in numerous places, or you are going to have to blast it away until it simply starts to sink. Until there's just not enough of the ship left and it starts to sink. That's because with a bigger warship, they're often more sturdily constructed. This warship has numerous reinforcements on the inside that prevent fire from spreading. It's designed to take a beating. You can also go for the engines. There is a rule on the Airship Pirates server that engines must be exposed. You can't hide them on the center of your ship. And they have to be arranged into logical engine pods. And that usually means it's on the back of the ship, but not always. You'll see this one has some engines hanging from a pod on the front. But they are always exposed. So you could torpedo all of the engines. And this design, it's designed to fly with any 2 engines. So you'd have to destroy 3. You could hit this one with a torpedo and destroy it, hit that one with a torpedo and destroy it, and it would still fly, but then if you also get this one, it would start to sink. So you see how that works. So engines are a vulnerability in any airship, any warship, I should say. So the next thing that we should talk about is the detection system. Since I have managed to sink essentially all of my warships, I shall have to bring in another one. So let me spawn another Barracuda. I'll do it right here. Okay. Now, if I pilot this, so let me go down into the bridge where the control sign is. If I pilot this right here, you'll note it gives me this alert. New contact, airship, commanded by Baka Admin, size 8943, so that means it's a big one. Range 103 to the north. So if I look to the north, hey look, there's the airship it's talking about. So that is the detection system. And you'll note, it gave me an actual alert. So let me right-click this again, just like I had first commanded my ship. And there is a loud, audible alarm telling me that there is a new contact in range. So we do that so that if you're cruising around delivering cargo, you might be on a half-hour long cargo haul, that will wake you up, make you realize that you need to pay attention because there's something in range and you might want to be concerned about it. So some details on the detection system. First off, large ships can be detected from further away than small ships. So that destroyer, I can probably see that from a mile away. That fighter, it's going to get closer before I'm going to see it. And submerged ships are much harder to detect. So if this Barracuda was submerged, I would probably not detect it until it was already on top of me. Of course, the trade-off there is submerged ships also travel incredibly slowly. So if you do spot a submerged ship while it is still submerged and you attack it, perhaps using an ASM, then you will likely sink it, because it can't get away. It can't, you move much faster than it does. But it does make submersibles very effective at ambushes, which of course is the way it should be. Alright, so the final thing that we need to talk about is ground combat. So, I want the emphasis on the server to be ship-to-ship combat, or at least airborne combat. But inevitably, some actual PvP combat is going to occur. But when you board a ship, like that big huge destroyer up there, you're not supposed to represent just a single person in command of that ship. That ship should have a huge crew, right? So if I board that ship, and I walk on it with a sword, and I kill the captain, that's not a very good representation. It's not very realistic. You see what I'm saying? So we create the crew sign to help symbolize that, yes, there is an actual crew on this ship, and killing just one person is not enough to gain control of the ship. So, if you have a crew sign and you die, you will respawn at your crew sign on the ship with several buffs. You will hit harder, you'll move faster, and you'll be completely invulnerable to damage for 20 seconds. What this does is it discourages boarding, or at least it makes it much harder. So if you want to take over a ship through boarding, you can expect a fight. You're going to kill the guy, maybe you catch him by surprise or something like that, but then he certainly knows you're there, and he's going to come after you as soon as he respawns at his crew sign. Now there's various strategies you can use to defeat that, and boarding is still viable, but it isn't simple. You have to actually think about it. So those crew signs do help to make it more meaningful to attack the airship itself. Because if you sink the airship, then their crew sign becomes irrelevant. Now, the final thing that I want to show you is the arena. Now, you've probably noticed all of these warships, they're all different. Their weapons are different, their TNT cannons have different ranges and different firepowers and penetration and all of that. So you need to practice with them. Well, obviously, you don't want to practice with your warship that you spent your life's earnings purchasing. So that's why we provide you with the arena. So if you simply type /warp, you'll see a list of your warps. Now when you're on the server, you will only see one. I see all these others because I'm an admin at the moment, but normally you will only see Arena Clears Inventory. And then to actually go to the arena, you would type /warp Arena Clears Inventory. Now, as the name implies, you are not coming out of here with your inventory intact, okay? Now with the shaders, it's kind of hard to see in here, so I'm going to go ahead and turn them on. There, that's better. Okay, so, the arena. The only way out of here is suicide. So obviously, you're not going to keep your inventory if you suicide. For that reason, you want to make sure you clear your inventory before you come here, and you want to make sure you have a crew sign that works, or you won't be able to get back to your ship when you're done. But this is a great place for practice. So you spawn in the middle. There's two sides, a north side and a south side. And you might come in here with a buddy or something, and have him take the south side and you take the north side. But they're identical, so you simply run to the end of this hallway. I'll fly, it's a little faster. And you'll see that there's this guy here, the arena supplier. There, now his skin is loaded. And if you approach him, then he talks to you and he says all sorts of rather disturbing things. More mortals? You just can't get enough of the violence, can you? Will you be killing each other soon? Anyway, sorry. Yes. So if you right-click on this guy, he will sell you all sorts of useful items for PvP for free. So all of this stuff is free. So I could take, well, let's see, I've been having fun with the Barracuda, so I'll go click on the Barracuda. And, well, I guess I should get some of the other basics, like some food, weapons, armor, everything. And you'll note, prices are all 0. You can come in here and battle your friends, have a good time, learn and get practice with the warships without having to spend a penny. And in order to use this, you simply go to one of these edges and you place the package, the box that he gives you, on the bedrock somewhere. I'm going to put it right there. Okay, there's my Barracuda. I can hop in here, I can take command of it, and I can attack, you know, whatever. So that's the arena. Use this to get practice. Use this to learn how the ships work, to learn the controls without risking blowing up your very expensive warship. It's also a good way to test modifications. So if you want to try to modify your warship and you want to make sure that it still works and all the weapons work without exploding, this is a good place to do that. Alright, well, I think that's all of the basics. So hopefully this helps you understand how you will engage in combat in the Airship Pirates World. And if this has been helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you online.